I'd like to share something that has generated quite a bit of conversation lately. If you haven't been following the news, you might want to sit down, as this story connects several aspects that many have missed. It all started with a comedian, a Super Bowl halftime show, and a name that has become a hot topic online. Interestingly, all these subjects came together in the same discussion at the same time. As you may realize, everything in our culture is linked if you look closely, and this situation exemplifies that well. Welcome to Pop Showroom, where we bring you the stories behind the headlines. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now because this story goes deeper than anything you've seen in the mainstream media. Josh Johnson is not a name that everybody knows off the top of their head, but if you have been watching The Daily Show, you already know what he brings to the table. This man is sharp. He does not just stand up there and throw out jokes for cheap laughs. He observes, he watches the culture, he watches the people, and then he walks out on that stage and holds a mirror up to all of it in a way that makes you laugh and think at the same time. That is the kind of comedian that lasts. Not the ones doing the same tired bits about airline food and their uncle at Thanksgiving, but the ones who are actually paying attention to what is happening in the world and saying out loud what everyone else is afraid to say. Josh Johnson is that type. He earned his spot, and when he speaks, people who know tend to listen. Now let us talk about what actually set all of this off, because without the context, the story does not hit the same way. Bad Bunny performed at this year's NFL Super Bowl halftime show. For those who do not know, the Super Bowl halftime show is not just a performance, it is a statement. It is one of the most watched television moments in the entire world every single year, and whoever is standing on that stage is being told, loudly and clearly, that you are at the top. You are the biggest thing in the culture right now. There is no bigger stage in entertainment. People wait their whole careers just to be considered for that moment, and Bad Bunny got it. And what did a section of people do the moment that was announced? They got mad. Not a little annoyed, not mildly confused, actually upset. People were on social media losing their minds over the fact that a Puerto Rican artist who primarily performs in Spanish was chosen for what some people consider the most American of all stages. The complaints were flying everywhere. Why him? Why not someone else? Why is it not an American artist? Why is it not someone from this genre or that genre? The usual noise that comes every single time the culture shifts and certain people realize they are not in control of where it is going anymore. You know exactly what that energy looks like because you have seen it before and you will see it again. But here is where Josh Johnson stepped in and did what great comedians do, which is take a moment that feels tense and chaotic and cut straight through it with the truth. He was on stage talking about all the people who were upset about Bad Bunny, all the outrage, all the complaints, and he made his point in a way that was so clean and so well-timed that the crowd had no choice but to feel it. He was essentially saying, think about where you are putting your energy right now. Think about what you are actually upset about and ask yourself if it makes any sense. Because the reality is, Bad Bunny did not take anything from anybody. He earned that stage the same way everybody else earns anything, by being undeniable, by having a fan base that is massive and loyal and passionate, by creating music that crosses every language barrier and every border, and somehow still makes you feel exactly what he intended you to feel. That is not a small thing. That is actually remarkable. And then, in the middle of all of this, Josh Johnson brought up Kendrick Lamar. Now, if you know anything about the last couple of years in hip-hop, just hearing that name in a certain context is enough to make the whole room lean forward. Kendrick Lamar has been at the center of some of the most intense cultural moments in recent memory, and his name carries weight that very few artists in any genre can claim right now. The way Johnson wove Kendrick into this conversation was not random, it was deliberate, and it was smart. Because Kendrick's whole thing, the reason he resonates so deeply with so many people, is that he speaks truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. He doesn't flinch, he doesn't soften it for people who might not want to hear it. He says what he sees, and he lets it land where it lands, and the culture respects that deeply. What Johnson was tapping into by mentioning Kendrick in the same breath as this Bad Bunny controversy was a larger point about authenticity and who gets to be celebrated and who gets questioned and why. Because when you look at the people who were upset about Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl, and then you look at the people who fully celebrated Kendrick Lamar's dominance in everything he has done lately, sometimes those are the same people, which tells you something very interesting about the way we apply our standards and our support, depending on who is involved. We celebrate certain artists for being unapologetically themselves, and then we turn around and criticize other artists for doing the exact same thing. And at some point, someone has to stand up and point that out. Josh Johnson did exactly that, and he did it in a way that was funny enough to go down easy, but sharp enough to actually leave a mark. The crowd reaction said everything. You could feel the moment land. That is not something you can fake. When a comedian says something that genuinely connects, the audience doesn't just laugh, they respond in a way that tells you they already knew this, they already felt this, they just needed someone to say it out loud in a way that gave them permission to acknowledge it. That is the power of what Josh Johnson does on stage. He gives language to things people are already feeling, but haven't figured out how to express yet. And in a culture as loud and as fast as the one we live in right now, that is genuinely valuable. Think about what Bad Bunny has actually built. This is a man who came from Vega Baja in Puerto Rico, who was bagging groceries while uploading music from his phone, who decided that he was not going to change who he was or what language he sang in just to fit into a market that hadn't made space for him yet. Instead of shrinking himself, he expanded the space. He made the world come to him, and it did. His numbers are not just impressive, they're historic. He has broken records that people thought could not be broken in the streaming era, and he has done it while staying true to a culture and a language and an identity that he has never once apologized for. So when someone asks why Bad Bunny deserves the Super Bowl stage, the answer is actually pretty simple. Because the numbers do not lie, and the culture does not lie, and both of them have been screaming his name for years. But here is the thing that Johnson's bit really pointed at, and this is the part that sticks with you after the laughter dies down. The anger that some people felt about Bad Bunny was never really about music quality or halftime show logistics. It was about discomfort. It was seeing the mainstream stage, the most visible stage in the country, occupied by someone who represents a part of America that certain people still don't want to fully acknowledge exists and thrives and creates and influences. Latin culture is not a trend, it's not a moment, it is a foundation that has been woven into the fabric of American music for decades. And Bad Bunny is not an anomaly, he is a result. He is the result of generations of artists and communities and fans who kept pushing even when the doors were closed, and now the doors are not just open, they blew them completely off the hinges. Kendrick Lamar understands this kind of narrative deeply. His entire catalog is built on the idea that the people who get overlooked and underestimated are often the ones carrying the most truth. And when they finally get their moment, it's not luck, it's the accumulation of everything they endured and created and survived to get there. When Johnson mentioned Kendrick in this context, it was not just a name drop for effect, it was a recognition that both of these artists, in very different lanes, represent the same fundamental truth about what happens when talent and authenticity refuse to be ignored, no matter how many people try to look away. The Super Bowl halftime show conversation is also important because of what that stage has historically looked like and who has historically been on it. For a long time, there was a very specific type of artist that got that call, and while many of them were incredible, the range was limited. The culture has been shifting for years, and the halftime show has slowly started to reflect that, but every single time it moves in a direction that feels new, there's a section of the audience that reacts like something is being taken from them rather than something being given to everyone. That reaction is worth examining every single time it shows up because it tells you where the real tension in the culture lives. Josh Johnson made people laugh, but he also made people think. And in 2025, that combination is genuinely rare.
There are plenty of people who will make you laugh. There are plenty of people who will make you think. The ones who can do both at the same time, in front of a live audience, on a topic that is actively unfolding in real time. Those are the ones who belong in the conversation about who is actually moving the culture forward. Josh Johnson belongs in that conversation, and this moment proved it clearly.
What this whole situation ultimately came down to is something that plays out over and over again in the music industry, in sports, in entertainment, in politics, in every space where visibility and power intersect. It is the question of who gets to be celebrated without asterisks, who gets to win without someone immediately trying to explain why the win does not count or does not deserve the stage it is on. Bad Bunny got the biggest stage in the world, and a portion of people spent the whole week trying to shrink it. Kendrick Lamar has had one of the most remarkable runs any artist has had in recent years, and people are still arguing about whether he deserves the flowers. And Josh Johnson stood on stage, looked at all of that, and called it exactly what it is. The streets already knew. The fans already knew. The numbers already told the story long before the controversy started. And when the dust settles, as it always does, what will remain is the music, the performances, the moments that actually happened, the Super Bowl halftime show that Bad Bunny delivered, and the comedian who had the courage to stand up and say clearly, while everyone else was busy being outraged, that maybe the problem was never the artist on the stage. Maybe the problem was always the people who could not stand to see him standing on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation, so please share your opinions in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on this story.